My name is Angelo Lopez. I'm a Filipino-American editorial cartoonist based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And today I have the great honor to be speaking to two great Canadian editorial cartoonists, Terry Mosher of the Montreal Gazette and Andy Donato of the Toronto Sun. Now, Terry and Andy are the have been doing editorial cartoonists since I think the late 60s, early 70s. And they're
Right.
the two longest running continuous editorial cartoonists in North America. And so today we'll be talking about their careers in editorial cartooning, their thoughts on Donald Trump, Terry's love of the Montreal Expos, and Andy's fine arts painting career. So thank you both and stuff for taking the time to talk to me today. Yeah. So
Nice to see you, Angelo.
oh yeah, thank you. I think I saw you the last time I saw you was in San Francisco.
Yes, that's right. I remember meeting you there. It was
Yeah.
a nice little convention. Jack Ullman, I think, had organized that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you, Ed. This is the first time I'm meeting you, so it's an honor to meet you too. And stuff. So, I was mentioning to you before, I have a cold and I've been coughing a lot for the past 2 days and stuff. So, if I start getting into a coughing fit, I apologize in advance and stuff. So, okay. Okay, let me ask my first question to you both and stuff. Now, it's been a month and a half since Donald Trump has been, for his Donald Trump's second term. I guess this is a two-part question. What's your thoughts on Donald Trump's first month and a half in office, and how are Canadians reacting to Trump's policies
Who
stuff?
goes first?
Andy, you go ahead.
Okay.
I the Canadians are, I'd say, about 99% against him. Can't stand him.
Yeah.
They even before this all happened, I couldn't meet anybody that liked Donald Trump anyway. And I think his first 70 days or whatever a disaster. I don't think he knows what he's doing. He's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Terry? What do you
Well, Angelo, you have to keep in mind we're very, very aware of what goes on in the United States. I would hazard a guess that Canadians in general are better informed about America than most Americans are because you dominate our entertainment, our news, and so we watch you all very carefully. The cartoonist Donald Trump has been the dominant cartoon figure, just as in America and Canada, for over 10 years. We've been drawing him constantly through the first term,
Yeah.
and even when he would pop his head up during Joe Biden's reign and COVID and that sort of thing, we continue to draw him. But I think it's particularly vicious now because he's being very vicious himself, and therefore we are really feasting on him. And it's changing our country. It's quite fascinating
Mm.
that we have become far more nationalistic. We've just appointed a new prime minister. This is fascinating, and Americans should pay attention to this. Traditionally, when we have a new prime minister, the first thing he does, he goes to Washington and visits with the president. That's not happening this time. Our new prime minister is going to France to improve trade relations there. He's going to England, and eventually we'll go to Japan and China and improve our trade relations we're going to expand and change our country because remember we're a country that has perhaps more natural resources available to the rest of the world
Yeah.
than many, if not all other countries in the world.
Okay. Do we look crazy to you guys? I'm just kind of curious from an outside point of view. Do we seem kind of crazy? I mean,
50% of you do.
yeah.
51.5%.
Yeah, I suppose that's about right, Andy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always wondering about that and stuff. Actually, as an American, I want to apologize to you both for, for the craziness of our government right now and stuff. So
That's one of
basically,
the dilemmas, we love Americans. We just don't like Donald Trump or his
yeah,
government. The part that I found I just can't believe is there are so many Republicans that I normally would have a lot of respect for. that keep backing this guy. They don't stand up to him. I just
No.
find that incredible.
Yeah, I have no explanation either and stuff. So
It's perfectly understandable, but the rich people who want to hold on to their money and even make more support Trump. The confusing issue here is, look, we all realize that most Americans are good, decent people like us. They love their families. They want to see their kids do well, all of that. We know that.
yeah,
You're not all monsters. But there's an uninformed quality to a lot of Americans, particularly Republicans, who just thought, oh, well, I've always voted Republican. Let's just go back to Donald Trump. The huge anti-Joe Biden campaign seemed to work, even
yeah,
though he had very competent people working for him.
yeah,
So you've fallen into a trap there, and we understand that. There's a conservative element here in Canada too, but
yeah,
hardly this is you'll enjoy this. The conservative element in Canada realizes it has to be fairly liberal.
yeah,
They can't do away with our Medicare. They can't do away with these social things that Canadians are just used to, and we
yeah,
want them. So now 80% of Canadians are against you in terms of these ridiculous trade things that Trump has built up and so
yeah.
on. But not only 80% of Canadians, much of the rest of the world is against you. And I think there's still time for hope. But if not, we wish you well.
Thank you and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, since you mentioned this, I was going to ask this question later, but I might as well ask it now and stuff. Is Canada as polarized as the US in terms of, I mean, we're really polarized and stuff. I used to have I used to have conservative friends and stuff.
Andy, you go first on this.
Yeah.
I would say that they used to be polarized with the French and the English elements that are always seem to be fighting. It's been great lately.
Oh,
Everybody's getting along. But if we're polarized in Canada, I think it's like 95-5. That's
oh.
not polarized, you know.
Okay. Okay. So it's basically whether you're more conservative or more liberal, Trump is uniting you all because the policies so severely affect Canada.
Oh,
Well,
they
let's
do. Go
let's
ahead.
have a little fun with us supposedly going to becoming a 51st state. And our response is, as Canadians, we want to be very polite about this, but that's going to happen over our dead bodies. It's just not going to happen. It's not in the cards.
Yeah.
But he goes on about this, just part of the insanity. But yes, Andy is right. There was always a sort of a French English division that goes back to 1066, I think, when France and England used to argue. There's been
Yeah.
a healthy sort of a healthy competition between the French and English, and you know why that is? Because they're so much alike. You know,
Oh, okay.
as with Israelis and Arabs and so on, they're so much alike, and yet they hate each other. But that's existence. It's part of our character. But this strange thing, and we thank Donald Trump for this, is happening. And Andy's right; he touched on it. Whereas Quebec is now hugely anti-American, and they're partnering with the rest of Canada in terms of the reaction to all of this. So
Mhm.
Trump, in an odd sort of way, has created a new dynamic Canada. It's going to be tough for a little while, but where we create international trade partners and take full advantage of our country and perhaps become economically, this is the goal, economically become one of the strongest countries in the G7. I think Andy will agree with me on all
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. And we also have that crazy thing which they're going to get rid of, the intertrade between provinces.
Yeah.
That's got to go as well. I think it's easing up, you hit the nail on the head with that though about the French. Uh, Mostly were always pro-American.
Uh,
Suddenly aren't that way at all anymore. They're fed up with the whole thing.
oh, okay. In the 70s, wasn't there a separatist movement a while? Or am I wrong? Am I
It
remembering?
still exists, but
Oh,
it's fallen below. I'm talking about the Quebec population here. We're talking about, for those who aren't aware, there's one it's a large province in Canada called Quebec, and it's dominantly French.
Yeah.
although there are other people from different, certainly 15% are still English and so on.
Yeah.
But in sympathy with Quebec, it's always been nervous about losing its language. So they've had to have a strong nationalist front to promote and preserve their language. And they've made great strides. And Quebec really runs its own show pretty much now in terms of French language dominates this, that, and the other. And, we want to keep French in North America. And so they've been successful with that. But it's always been a polite conversation. Quebec nationalists and Canadian nationalists will argue on television and then go and have lunch.
We agree to disagree.
Civilized arguments on the whole face of the earth. But this is really encouraging, I think, to most of us. 85% of us really like what's happening. We know we're going to have to tighten our belts. We know that for a little while, Trump will be able to hurt us. But in the long run, we will be able to pass on a far more independent and stronger Canada, hopefully, to our children and our grandchildren. I think Andy would agree 100% with that.
100%, yeah.
Okay.
And if Andy and I agree on it, everybody else does, right?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons I invited you both and stuff. So thank you. So, okay, let me ask my next question. Now, for both of you, how did you both become interested in editorial cartoons, and who are your cartoonist heroes and heroines?
Well, Andy's been working 2 years longer than I have. He started in 1964, so I'll let the elder guy go first.
You'll catch up to me in age, don't worry. Mine was by pure. I used to, the cartoonist at the time was a guy named Al Beaton, a great guy. He'd go by my desk. I was just graphic design mainly, and he would put his cartoon in the little elevator that took it down to the engraving department, and he was always complaining about Bassett, the publisher, and other editors. And I thought, how the hell can that be one cartoon a day? Be that much complaining. I mean, I'm doing 9 jobs at once.
Yeah.
So I went home that night and drew a cartoon on the flag debates in Ottawa. And I brought it in the next day to show him and say, is this any good? And he was sick that day. And the editor saw it and said, oh, great, I could use that. So they published it in the Telegram. Time magazine printed it, and then it wound up in the Encyclopedia Americana. And I thought, wow, this is a great job. Time even paid me $50, I think, at the time. And so then what launched that was that the editors saw that I could draw cartoons.
Yeah.
And I was the fill-in guy. And I did it for, I think, 4 months. Well, the editor-in-chief didn't like my stuff, so they had to hire Yardley Jones. He replaced me, and I went back to being art director. That's how I got into it.
That's cool. Did you have any heroes and stuff, or?
Well, Duncan McPherson was my favorite because he was, I think, the best, probably the best we've ever had in Canada over the years, and it was mainly him. And I also admired a lot of other cartoonists in Canada. Like Roy Peterson was great. My friend Terry here, I used to look at his stuff, and I'd say, "What a wacko this guy is."
I started out actually. My dad was a journalist and a writer, and so I grew up not knowing what a conservative was. He had all kinds of liberal friends. My parents had wonderful parties in Toronto and Montreal and Ottawa, where I was born, 3 places I lived. So we moved around a lot, but they didn't know what to do with me because I wasn't very in school, but I could draw a little bit. So they suggested I go to art school, and I ended up in art school in Quebec City, of all places, at a French art school there. And in the summer, to make a few bucks to get through the winter, I started drawing caricatures on the street in Quebec City of
Oh,
American tourists and spoke with a phony French accent. You like my painting? Sort of thing.
did you sound like
And
Maurice
it,
Chevalier?
it
Or?
seemed to work. They would, wives, American wives, say, "Oh, look at this, Fred! Sit down and have your cartoon done," and they'd laugh at the cartoon. The guys
Yeah,
didn't
yeah, yeah.
like it, but I seemed to be good at it.
Oh,
And so I did that for a few summers, and then what happened basically was, as I approached graduation, I began to look around and went to New York, hitchhiked to New York, and had a couple of drawings published there in at various magazines. When I came back to Canada, they were hugely impressed with the fact that I had had stuff published in New York.
yeah.
Just circumstances. It was really serendipity. Uh, and they began publishing me here. So in 1966, uh, I had my first cartoon published in Canada. And from graduating from being a street artist, within 2 years, I was doing covers for Time magazine. So it was very rapid.
Yeah, yeah.
Suddenly remembered print was king in those days, and Andy will vouch for that. Print
Oh,
was
yeah.
king, and I was getting printed here, there, and everywhere, all over the place. And I've been doing it ever since. 15,000 cartoons later, here I am still drawing at 82.
Wow. It seems like, I mean, because print was king at that time, there just was a ton more opportunity. I mean, having your cartoons published in Time magazine at such a young part of your careers, that's pretty cool.
But could I mention, by the way, that first Time cartoon, I never got it back, the original from Time. I
Oh,
kept it, but I have the original because it was a freelance. And I only discovered last year it's hanging in the Smithsonian.
oh my. Wow.
I am not going to complain about that. Being in this
Oh,
is
no.
pretty good feather in my cap. Yeah,
Yeah, the security guard might do something if you try
yeah,
to
yeah.
right
If I try to
now.
take it off the wall, yeah,
Okay.
that's a good cartoon.
Yeah. Was it kind of
What,
like, oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Andy.
I tell you, what was the cartoon? What was it about? Do you remember?
It was Trudeau. It was 500 days after he had been elected, and
Oh, right.
I had him sewing up the beaver, pulling it together, but he
Oh,
sewed up the mouth first.
Uh, was it sort of love at first sight for you both? Once you got your first hands into doing an editorial cartoon, you instantly loved it, or
oh, yeah. It was for me. Yeah.
oh, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, same here. Just we're very fortunate. Andy and I are the long tooth survivors and so on. But I just love having happened into what it is we do. Remember, and this is important to know, we work for writers,
Yeah,
and writers knew usually know shit all about cartooning.
yeah, yeah,
We're a puzzle to them, and why are we so popular and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
we march along through our lives. Editors come, editors go. Sure, there's the occasional kerfuffle, but this is identical for Andy and I. They come and they go, but
yeah,
we keep just doing, because we don't want to be the managing editor. We
yeah.
don't want to be something else. We
That's
want
right.
to be who we are.
Yeah.
And Andy and I are the best examples of that. Two guys who just want to do something, make a living, support our kids,
Yeah.
keep going, and so on. Now, there's an awful lot of discussion these days, when we'll get into this, I'm quite sure, about the business of cartooning as we know it being threatened, and it's true. But we'll talk about that in a while. Andy?
Yeah. Oh, no, you're absolutely right. And the thing about me is that once I got into it, I just loved going to work every day. I
Oh,
used to love going to work anyway because I had a job. I used to work at my dad's grocery store, which I hated with a passion. And
yeah,
when I got my first job at Eaton's, and doing layouts for furniture and ladies' girdles and all that stuff, I was happy there. But when I got into cartooning, far happier, and I loved it up to this day. Even every Friday I got to draw the Sunday cartoon,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
look forward to doing it.
Oh,
It's
cool.
interesting, Andy. You started out with Eaton's, the Eaton's catalog. We should explain what that required hundreds of little penning drawings, and you had to do them quickly. And Duncan McPherson, your hero, my hero, started out exactly the same way, working for Eaton's, and he really got his penmanship down, having to produce, drawings of shoes, drawing of all kinds of ordinary things, auto tires, and learning how to draw those things very quickly. Added, because I love cartoonists that really know how to draw. I mean, they're different styles and so on, but Ed Franklin, as you had mentioned, all of these guys grew up. We grew up, Andy, looking at these tremendous draftsmen, Len Norris out west, who could just draw an assembly line quickly.
Yeah.
And so we came from something that was genuine. I wrote a biography, actually, of our hero, Duncan McPherson, and I was fascinated how he developed. He's also quite a character. But anyway,
I'm going to have to learn about
throw that in about the importance of Eaton's illustrators.
I'm going to have to learn about Duncan McPherson and stuff. Yeah.
We have. I think Andy will vouch for it. I was so devoted to this guy. I wanted to write a wonderful biography of Canada's best ever cartoonist, and I have, and it's available.
Yeah. Okay. Duncan was a great guy as long as he didn't punch you out.
Okay.
And
he had this habit of
he beat up a lot of people. It's like Big Scott. There's no, but I think he never beat up another cartoonist.
No, he didn't. No,
he was always protecting.
He threatened me once. That was all.
Oh yeah,
nothing. But anyway, and I forgot what I was going to say. But I didn't realize that he worked for Eaton's. That's right.
He did.
And Terry's book on him was fantastic. It's a great book. I've read it, but it's one of the few books I've read cover to cover because I used to be bored. And
if I could push it, it's called Professional Heckler.
Oh, okay.
By the way, you haven't mentioned the fact that my pen name is actually Aislin, Aislin.
Yeah.
It's my daughter's name, and that's what I use professionally and have for close to 60 years now. Okay. And just for anybody who's interested in that biography, Google Aislin, Professional Heckler, and they'll find the book.
Okay, I'll put it in, below as a caption so that people can look for it. And stuff.
Sure.
Okay, okay, this is my next question. Aside from Donald Trump, what are some issues facing Canada?
Oh,
yeah, take Donald Trump out of the.
I don't think there are any now. There are always nothing major, I think, was going on, and he came along and started the tariff stuff. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you sort of knew right away, because I think our own politicians said, whatever they slap on us, we'll slap on them. And you think, well, gee, what's he going to do? He may as well back off now. But he made a fool of himself by keep on going. It right now dominates all the news. My newspaper, that the Sun, usually has about 5 pages right in the front on this whole thing, discussing what he's done or what he's going to do. It goes on and on forever. And other than that, at one time, language was a big issue. But I can't remember the last time there was a major issue like this one. This has been the biggest for years.
Yeah.
Free trade. You remember free trade, Andy? Going back to the early beginnings of cartooning in Canada, political cartooning, as we understand it today, began in the 1840s when the country was starting to form, and there were arguments amongst different groups and so on. And then we had a prime minister. So one of the main topics throughout our history has been relations between our 10 provinces and territories. And it's always been subject for cartooning, feuds between Ontario and Quebec, or those arrogant British Columbians and just that sort of thing. That's always a mainstay. Also religion earlier on, because half the country was Catholic, half the cover. This is in the 1800s, and the other half Protestant. And then the next major theme has been Canadian-American relations. It's always been with us. It just really hit a boiling point. But there was a free trade argument in 1912, another one in 1998, 88, sorry. So those are major themes. They've always been with us. and they make our job easy, quite honestly, because these themes repeat themselves again and again and again. So
Yeah.
we can reshuffle cartoons again and again and again and look very, very current. Andy does it, I do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know this
And,
with
and
me
our,
too. I sometimes have a hard time because I do cartoons on the Philippines, but
Yeah,
since the same issues keep popping up and stuff, I sometimes repeat my ideas and stuff without realizing it, just because it's the
that's
same issue.
probably true of cartooning everywhere. We
Mhm.
certainly look at England, look at, with the birthplace of political cartooning, again, as we understand it,
Mhm.
France and England, and other areas too. It started in Italy, actually. But
Oh,
it's always been a repetitive that people could relate to. And I am convinced, sure, we do cartoons on the Middle East. Sure, we do cartoons on other international subjects. But the
yeah,
best cartoons we do, I think in the long run that hold up, are local cartoons. Andy
yeah,
has a field day with stuff that goes on in Toronto, and he used to draw people in Hamilton, Ontario, a smaller town. Everybody in Hamilton had a bum for a face. I mean,
yeah.
that got him into trouble, but we remember those cartoons. And I've had wonderful time with Quebec politics and stuff. And that's the stuff I think in the long run I'll be remembered for. Like Andy and I talk about this quite a bit, the business of what we'll be remembered for. Sir David Lowe was one of the greatest cartoonists of all time.
Yeah.
He worked during World War II in England, and he was on Hitler's hit list. That
Yeah.
means his cartoons were so effective that Hitler wanted him dead.
Yeah.
Now, Sir David Lowe, who is one of our gods in the cartooning world, once said, and I've always remembered this, he said, if a cartoonist draws a dozen cartoons that are remembered in the history books, he's had a wildly successful career. Think
Wow.
about that.
yeah,
Wow.
How many editorials are remembered? How many editorials that are written are remembered? But cartoons are remembered. And Andy, you're almost drawn. You're almost there. You've drawn 11.
I, I always remember Ben Wicks
Yeah.
saying that when he was asked the question, he said, "Well, whenever it gets bad, we can always fall back on two things: inflation and Vietnam. They were the
Oh,
Yeah.
two topics that when things slowed down, you could always depend on doing a cartoon on those two
Yeah.
oh,
objects."
yeah.
Now it's homelessness. Now it's
Yeah.
homelessness.
Yeah, homeless is for locally. That's been coming up. I'm tired of drawing cardboard boxes on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you
But
find sometimes that you get surprised at how on the effect of your cartoons? Like, from out of the blue, you find out that your cartoons had an effect that it never occurred to you that it would have an effect on.
Andy,
not,
show him your T-shirt.
oh yeah. Here, let's see if you can see it here.
Oh, wow.
That's
Oh,
today's
cool.
cartoon in the sun.
Oh, wow.
Best cartoon of the year, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
In Canada here. Andy drew a cartoon actually during the free trade fight. And it had no Hominy in the 1980 of American troops on Iwo Jima.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
raising the flag, but the flag is actually going up Homany's ass. Right?
Okay.
Probably in the top 5 cartoons remembered in Canada. And we'll
Oh,
always remember Andy for that particular cartoon. Now he's done a play on it. He's repeated it by Canadian troops with the flag shoving it up Donald Trump's ass.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
he's even got a T-shirt now.
I
So
got
yeah,
to tell you, Terry's most memorable cartoon to me was when the Mayor John Depeau. The Olympics were going to come to Montreal, and Drapeau was famous for saying that the Olympics could no more lose money than a man have a baby. And Terry had him on the phone saying, "Hello, Morgenthaler."
now you have to, yeah,
He was the big
Miller is a
abortionist.
famous abortionist
Oh,
here in Canada. So it's one of those cartoons that's very local. An American would not understand what the hell that cartoon, but
No,
I
they were.
love drawing the naked mare with a big pregnant stomach and him looking confused and so on. So Andy's right. That's certainly in my top. Was certainly in my dozen or whatever. Oh, show him your ring, Andy. You just
Oh,
flash.
my ring, yes.
Well, tell him about the ring.
Where it be?
Oh,
If you see it,
is it skulls? Am I looking at
that's
skulls?
right. It's all skulls. It's all
Okay.
my editors.
Oh, Terry, do you have the same thing? Oh, okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. What?
Years ago in Mexico.
Terry, yeah, Terry had them made, and I got one this year, and I'm so proud of it. I wear it all the time. You know.
Oh,
Briefly, what happened was years ago in Mexico in 2005, there was a beach there way in the south in Oaxaca that we loved. And there was a street vendor selling rings and stuff, silver, really good stuff. You know. My
yeah.
wife, as a wedding anniversary present, bought me this ring.
Oh,
Where's the camera here? Yeah, there it is. This
yeah,
ring.
yeah, yeah.
I said, "What's that all about?" And she said, "Well, that's actually I'm not a biker or anything." She said, "No, what it is those are all the editors you've survived at the newspaper." At a San Francisco convention, Rod Emerson from New Zealand, a great cartoonist in New Zealand,
Yeah.
he asked me about the ring. So I told him the story. And he said, "Jesus Christ, Terry, that's great. I want to have a ring. Can you get me a ring?" So I got him a ring, and I gave it to him in Columbus. The next convention in Columbus, I gave it to him, and we had a little ceremony. And then Cal, wonderful Cal, said, "God damn it, Terry, I want a ring too." So Cal, I had to get Cal a ring, but if I was going to get Cal a ring, I wanted to get one for Ann Telness,
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of my favorite people in the world.
yeah.
And then Brian Gable, one of our top cartoonists here, I thought, oh, well, let's give it. So I gave them rings, and it's exploded now. And now I'm giving them to about a dozen, 14 people. Not, but these are people not necessarily the best in the world. They're people who love the art form and promote it. Andy has promoted cartooning for all of his 60 whatever years cartooning. The, Emerson, other people, and I have plans as long as I'm around to walk around the world a little bit and keep handing these out to people I really admire and think have done a great job for cartooning. So Andy got his this year, and there'll be a few others who'll be getting him the next year.
Now,
So.
Terry's given up cartooning and gone into the jewelry business.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay. Thank you both for coming back to the talk and stuff. Like my cough seems to be, during our break and stuff, I was trying to gulp down a lot of cough drops and stuff, but
We suspected it was something else you were swallowing there.
but thank you. Oh, okay. Okay. Next question and stuff. So, for both of you, okay, in America, for the past couple of years, American editorial cartoonists have been struggling as newspapers have declined. Now, this is a two-part question. How have Canadian editorial cartoonists gone through a similar struggle? And are there any special challenges that Canadian editorial cartoonists have?
Andy, go.
Well, they are declining. There's no question about it. I'm trying to remember. I think at one point we had about 50 cartoonists. Terry might know better that we listed in one of the books. There was a book called Portfolio
Yeah,
that our friend Guy Badeau used to do. But there's no doubt that newspapers are suffering for advertising, which is all going onto the internet, and therefore they're dying. We don't even have an office anymore. Everybody on our staff works from home and puts the paper out that way every day.
yeah,
So it is, and I know there are a lot of cartoonists in the States are out of work. Some of them have gone on to Facebook and places like that. They're selling their work, syndicating it.
yeah,
I'm trying to remember. There's Substack is one that's very popular.
yeah,
But I'm lucky, and Terry's lucky. I know I'm only down to one a week, but it's still grocery money.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, it's less so in Canada. I can say that, but certainly, uh, you summed it all up actually, Angelo, in your first statement. Newspapers are dying.
Yeah.
Printed newspapers are dying. They've moved their platform and they're now really good online. Even I read the newspapers. I read the 7 or 8. I glance at every day.
Yeah.
Washington Post, New York Times, and 4 or 5 papers here in Canada, French and English.
Yeah.
I look at online because it's a lot more convenient.
Yeah.
But it can get expensive. But look, the reality is, get on a subway, get on a bus, nobody's looking at a newspaper anymore. Print is dying, no question about it. And we're kind of the dinosaurs at the end of the line. The average newspaper reader, I think, is now about 60 years old, the age. But we've had a terrific run. I'm always grateful for the wonderful. We worked with, Andy and I came up with some of the best cartoonists I've ever worked with. They're brilliant guys, and I did stuff. And that influenced the two of us to allow us to keep going. Why he and I are still going and others aren't, probably our newspapers are loyal to us and still functioning. That's the main thing. I mean, I've been with the Montreal Gazette for eons. And as I'm joking, I say editors come and go, but it's still surviving. I still draw 3 cartoons a week for them. And we have a second cartoonist. And I should say, by the way, in Montreal, my hometown, you won't believe this, but there's still 7 functioning cartoonists.
Oh,
7.
wow.
You
Wow.
don't have 7 in New York or LA or any place else. You don't have that. And
Yeah.
Toronto still does very well because Toronto's still the best newspapers in Canada come out of Montreal and Toronto. And Toronto still has a bunch of cartoonists, some working more and less than others, but Andy has a partner, Sue Dewar. She still draws, I think. The Toronto Star has a couple. Globe and Mail has a couple. So it's not quite as bad here or dire, but we have lost a lot of good people and we've lost a lot of good newspapers. But here's the thing, on the positive side, and of course we can catch up with people on Substack, but the problem is, suppose I want to follow 15 cartoonists. It's costing me $50 to $80 a year.
Yeah.
It gets expensive. And of course, there are always shortcuts to find them. But Substack is typical. We're changing platforms. We're online now. I'm online, and there are days when many, many more people see my cartoons on various platforms online. I did one of Joe Biden and Trump years ago that got 2 million hits. That doesn't happen every day, but I'm saying that's where the platform is. The puzzle for younger people who are going to do that is how to get paid for it.
Yeah.
But wit will survive. Wit will always survive. We'll be always laughing at ourselves, pointing fun. Look at the success of late night comedians. I mean, they're phenomenally popular. So cartoonists will start visually. I'm convinced down the road, because you can't keep a good joke down. You just can't do it. It spreads out there like wildfire. I'm more optimistic for the younger generation, but anybody who comes in to see me, and they still come in and say, what do you think, you old fart? Should I start trying to do this? And I say, but find a platform online, develop an audience online. That's what you have to do. Graphic novels. We're still popular visually, but the whole format has changed, and that's where you have to go. And I'm grateful for what I've had, and I'm quite sure Andy is too.
Well, the thing that I notice is that everybody's a cartoonist now. They take with Photoshop, they'll take Trump's head and stick it on Arnold Schwarzenegger's body or something. They do all that, and some of them are quite funny. And a lot of that, I think, kind of replaces the editorial cartoon, because we can draw, and that's kind of new. I remember years ago, I think it was when I was my second year drawing cartoons, I did a model of Diefenbaker, who was our famous president, prime minister, and I had a little plasticine model painted, and I had on the body of who's the doll that's very popular, on his body anyway. And I was using it as a photograph, as a cartoon with a balloon. And I thought, well, that's interesting because it's different and it's new.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Saved me a lot of drawing. And I took it to the editor in chief, and he just looked at it and said, "You're ahead of your time. Go back to drawing." Never did anything more about it, you know.
And we haven't even mentioned artificial intelligence. I mean, the stuff that's going on there is quite. The renderings are just amazing things. But if you can bring wit to that, because the thing is that wit is at the heart of it all. Wit, cleverness, presenting something a little differently. That's at the heart of all humor. And humor goes back to the cave paintings when we would laugh at ourselves with little sketches and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So wit is there, cleverness is there, and it continues to be with the younger generation. But they laugh at different things now because tastes change.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I understand that some cartoonists have been dealt with badly, primarily, let's face it, primarily by bean counters and people who've taken over newspapers. So they just don't want that stuff anymore. And first it was syndication. We're replacing everybody with syndication, and now even replacing those people. So we've had a great run, but wit will survive.
Yeah.
I think
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Terry and I have both lived through the golden age of cartooning and newspapers, because I remember when I started in the newspaper business, as Terry did, they were using hot metal type. And I remember even setting the stuff myself in the composing room. And all this time, they went through offset printing and typesetters. They got rid of linotypes, and the progression came along, and we've lived through all that.
Yeah.
Reproduction. I mean, at one time you had to do everything in with pen and ink and line, and now there's color. And I used to do my cartoons in ink and sepia, watercolor.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that with metal. It had to be done. Offset printing came in, and I one that looked at newspapers that offset, and I looked at it, they're crazy. There's no way you can paste up all that type.
Yeah.
I remember.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I remember in 2002, I walked into the Gazette, and my editor says, "As of tomorrow, every cartoon you draw is going to be in color," because I had been, like most of the time, been drawing in black and white, except for special. And I said, "Oh, well, that's great. Are you going to give me more money?" And they said, "Get serious." So I rapidly learned how to do a color expediently back then, 5 days a week. And thank God for Photoshop, because I discovered a way where I could color things very quickly. And by putting the color in behind the black and white as opposed to on top of it. And so I still use basically that technique, and it's very effective. So that changed. But getting back to what Andy was saying, we're very fortunate to live through a wonderful period. And I think that probably my concern now is more, and I think Andy is concerned with that, how are we going to be remembered? I get back to the business of drawing a dozen cartoons. I mean, whatever. And Andy, thankfully, has produced a lot of books. And so sitting on dusty shelf 100 years from now, there's going to be a Donato collection of cartoons. And I've produced 55 books, not only on my own cartoons, but on other subjects that interest me. And I think that's probably, hopefully, going to survive me. Because we're all concerned with our own work and hoping it will be remembered to a certain extent. Younger people have to move on to whole other different directions, and they already have.
The Billy Ireland Museum in I forgot where that is and stuff.
Ohio.
There are some, like in San Francisco, there's the Cartoon Art Museum and stuff. I think I think some of your work will be remembered through exhibitions and stuff, like the Billy Ireland Museum, the Cartoon Art Museum and stuff. Because I get introduced to cartoonists I never heard of before when I see some of those exhibitions.
The McCord Museum here in Montreal has a collection of, they have they have 7,000 of my original drawings.
Oh, wow.
The other top cartoonists in Montreal, on the French, Serge Chapleau, they have 7,000 of his too. So there you go, taken care of in a museum. The Ottawa has a lot of cartoons at the National Archives, so they're being preserved there. A lot of work is, I think, at the National Archives in Ottawa. We've got a real jump on you there in that direction. Universities collect cartoons and so on. So it's there. It sits there safely on a shelf and will be recalled and made use of, I think, in histories and future.
But I know I made a donation to, I think I'm in 4 universities, Ryerson a few years ago. And I went up there to see them one day, and they said, "Would you like to see the cartoons you gave us?" And I said, "Yeah." And they went over, they opened up this room with all these beautiful boxes.
Yeah.
Opened one up, and they put on white gloves.
Yeah.
Which just killed me. I throw mine around, you ink spreaders on them, your coffee, and they had tissue paper over every one of them. Pull them out and show me.
All these drawings that we used to drop cigarette ashes on and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
I remember once, Andy, you'll love this. I remember once I couldn't find the right red I wanted, and the deadline for Maclean's magazine or something, which is our national magazine at the time. So I had to get a red. So I went and got a can of Campbell Soup, a perfect red, and dipped it in and colored it. And what did it matter how long it was going to last? Colored it, worked fine, sent it off to Toronto. So we're pretty casual about producing these things. But then these people who, these archivists who gather them are really, really careful. Nice to see that kind of respect.
Oh, that is. Yeah, it's good.
And so generations from now, a cartoonist fan will know what kind of soup you liked.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay.
They'll test the coffee spills on it and know what coffee I drank too.
Sure. I think my cartoon originals will have like donut sprinkles and stuff. So
and cough syrup.
Cough syrup. Yeah. Am I coughing a lot right now? I can.
No, you're fine. Just let it go. It's all
okay.
Right.
Okay.
But unlike, I got to tell you, unlike Terry, when the editor said you're going to be drawing color from now on, the same thing came up with me. And my contract came up, and we're renegotiating it. And I said, I said, if I've got to draw Sundays on color, you've got to, at least I want a little more for that. So they paid me a little more for the Sunday one. And then when they got to doing it every day, we used to have to phone in to find out if a color was available. They would automatically put the extra charge on the color.
That's cool. So,
okay.
Yeah. Terry, my next question. You just did a book, Aislin's Montreal Expos, a cartoonist love affair. Could you tell me about that book and tell me about your love of the Montreal Expos?
Let me put on my sports cartoonist hat.
Oh, okay.
Montreal Expos.
Yeah.
They're a Major League Baseball team that many Americans will know existed here in Montreal for 35, 36 years. From 1969 through until 2004. And they became part of the fabric of the city. Yeah. I won't bore you with the details. You can read about it in the book, but we had a terrific original owner with a lot of noblesse oblige, and he financed things, and we all fell in love with the team. Yeah. And then he felt that he wanted to get out of the game, and he had to sell the team. Many American cities offered to buy the team, but he wanted to keep it in Canada. So he waited around try and get Canadian ownership. But in Quebec, the people were very hesitant about putting up that kind of money. Eventually, a consortium of owners got together, began feuding, and despite the ball players always trying to do the best they can, they ruined the team, and eventually it went to Washington and became the Washington Nationals. So we have this 35, 36, unlike Toronto is very successful with the Blue Jays. They didn't run into the political stuff that we had here. anyway, it's a place in my heart because I grew up playing baseball. I love baseball.
Yeah.
And so I decided, as a tribute to the team, I put together this book. It's Aislin's
Oh,
Montreal Expos, and it's filled with drawings and photographs and anecdotes and so on. And it's
yeah,
a real
yeah.
record of the team. And also, I make enough money that I didn't need the royalties, so I ended up giving the royalties, approximately $20,000, to a local children's hospital.
Oh,
So
cool.
everybody was happy with this book, and the ball players were happy, and other people. So it was really a work of love and joy and so on. And I'm very happy to. So, but I took a test when I was a kid. I was 12 years old. My parents puzzled over me, and they had me do what were they called back then? The equivalent of what you should be doing eventually. You check
Oh,
yes,
yeah, 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 yeah.
you like yellow
Career,
boats or blue
career, with
boats,
those
and
career things and stuff,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
And one of those tests at 12, you know, do you like a yellow boat? Do you like a silver boat? All this crazy stuff. And you
yeah.
know, yes, I should be
What?
a sports cartoonist.
Oh, and
Well,
did you?
I didn't make it that far, but I had to step down and become a political cartoonist instead.
Oh,
But I kept it up. In 1972. The newspaper sent me to spring training to do sketchbooks, and Andy would do the same thing for his
Yeah.
newspaper. And people loved that, drawing sketches of guys sliding into second base,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah.
They were
And
fun.
so I decided to pull all of that stuff together and create this book. And so that's the thing now.
Okay. Did you have any favorite players?
Oh yeah, all kinds of them. Bill Lee is one of my best friends now,
Yeah.
who's known as the spaceman. He produced out for the pitch for the Boston Red Sox. They got fed up with him and traded him to Montreal, where we loved him because in Montreal they love characters. They just loved Bill,
Uh,
and whole bunch of other people too. Ellis Valentine.
uh,
It's interesting with Ellis Valentine. He ran into problems with alcohol and drugs
oh,
at the same time I did.
oh, okay.
And we sobered up and got straight in the same year, 1985.
Oh,
So
wow.
he dealt with. So we have a lot to talk about on that front. And now Ellis runs a successful rehab in Texas in the United States, and we're in touch. So a lot of personal anecdotes in the book. It's very, very personal. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Andy too loves baseball. Well, he loves all
Oh,
sports.
I
were
love.
you a Blue Jays
I
fan?
watch. I watch every Blue Jays game that's on. Last year I faded out because they were doing so bad. But I love. I used to go to spring training every year for God knows
Um,
how many years, and I played baseball as well. I played softball, not baseball, but because I was too old to play baseball. But
yeah,
it was. But it's funny. You're talking about that test you take to
yeah,
find out what you want to be, and
Aptitude test. That's what it
yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Aptitude test.
We
Yeah.
had that in my high
aptitude.
school
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah. Always reminds me of the Jewish father who was worried about his son and what he was going to be. And he went to the rabbi. The rabbi said, I have a simple test. So he put down a dollar bill, a Bible, and a glass of wine and
Yeah.
said, when your son comes in, see what he does. So they hid in the closet, and the kid came in and drank the wine, picked the bill, put it in his pocket, started reading the Bible.
Yeah.
The rabbi said, oh my God, he's going to be a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. You know, I was a big Cincinnati Reds fan in the 70s and stuff. Two of my players, Tony Perez and Pete Rose, for a brief time, they were I think Montreal Expos.
Yeah, they were exposed. They were. And my all-time favorite baseball player, all-time favorite,
Yeah.
was Joe Morgan.
Yeah.
oh yeah, very true. Yeah.
Joe Morgan. And you know why?
Why?
Joe was, well, I'm the wrong color. I'm not black, but Joe was 5'7",
Yeah.
and he weighed 170 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm 5'7" and I weigh 170 pounds. There you go.
Well, he was a great player. He was
He's
a
a terrific
two-time,
player. Oh yeah,
yeah, it was
stolen
two-time
bases, runs.
MVP.
he was an all-time player. And second basemen always aren't rated as they're very important in terms of the infield. Shortstops seem to get all the attention, but he
Yeah.
was terrific sensitive. You know, he won many Golden Gloves and that sort of thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
he was.
he had a weird way of batting. He'd always flap his arm, right?
That's
Before
right.
he, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So Angelo, was Pete Rose your bookie?
Oh yeah.
yeah. Pete
Yeah, I
Rose.
didn't win much money with that, you know. Yeah, I was a big Pete Rose fan, but I was a fan of that entire team. Bench, Johnny Bench, Davey Concepcion, all of those great players and stuff.
Yeah.
That was the time of the Big Red Machine and stuff. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, there was a time when Pete Rose could do no wrong in America until the scandal and stuff. So gosh.
My
You know, I
cousin.
actually met him. My wife and I were wandering around Las Vegas, and as we were about to leave, we saw Pete Rose signing autographs. And so my wife and I took a picture with Pete Rose. I think it was at the end of the day because he didn't really talk to us very much. But I didn't blame him and stuff. I just got the picture, and now it's hanging in my bathroom wall and stuff. So yeah.
Well, Johnny Bench played there's a golf course in Cooperstown where the Baseball Hall of Fame is,
Oh
and
yeah.
they have a lot of golf games there at Leather Stocking, beautiful golf course. And there's a plaque on one of the holes where Johnny Bench hit a drive about 310 yards, which was
Oh.
unheard of then. And then my cousin, who was marshaling that day, he chili dipped the next four shots to get on the green.
Oh, okay. Terry, I'm curious. How can we purchase your book?
You know the easy because a lot of the books aren't available anymore. Although I have them stashed away. Let me give this to you. The best way to find out about the books is to go to my website.
Okay.
And as I mentioned before, my actual pen name is Aislin, Aislin. So if you simply go to www.aislin.com, you'll find out more about me there than you'll ever need to know.
Yeah.
And we're leading off at the top because are a list of all of my books and
Yeah.
those that are available. There's others I've done too. This, for example, is the best selling book I've ever done is this one. And
Yeah.
it's Aislin 50 Years of Cartooning from Trudeau to Trudeau. And it was a collection of my best cartoons over a 50-year period. And I thought I was going to retire after that, but then things got interesting again. So now I'm coming up on 60 years. So I guess I have to do a book to go with that book. Anyway,
Oh,
I
okay.
love actually. I guess because my dad was a writer, I liked the idea of course drawing for newspapers and publications, but the deliberateness and joy of going through a couple of years of your work, and then picking out your favorite cartoons, and then writing a paragraph or two to describe it for future historians, whatever, is still gives me my biggest thrill.
Oh,
And when that book arrives and you hold it, it's a wonderful thing, and hopefully they'll have a future on a dusty shelf somewhere.
okay. 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 Well, I'm looking at my clock. We have 9 minutes for the second meeting. So let me squeeze in one more question for Andy and stuff, because Andy, you do fine art paintings, right?
Yes.
And I guess it's a style called bent realism, and your work has been exhibited in Toronto, London, uh, New York, Johannesburg, and
Yeah.
Fardella, Italy. Is that right? Fardella, Italy.
Well, that's my dad's hometown where they made me an honorary citizen.
Oh,
That
okay.
They have a
Could you
big
tell me?
cartoon contest there every year in July. And
Oh,
they invite this. I've been invited, but I just never gotten there. I've been to the hometown several times, but
oh,
last year they had a real big ceremony for cartooning, and they're opening up a cartoon museum there, I think. But
oh,
in Italy, they do it all because they get money from the government if they do things like that.
oh, okay.
It's all,
I'm curious. I'm curious. Can you tell me about your fine art paintings?
oh, it started many years ago, and I got serious when I got rejected as a cartoonist at the Telegram and started painting. And I had my first show, I guess, was 1967, and it sold out, and the next one sold out, and then they'd only half sell. Then over the years, I've had several. I had
Oh,
the one in New York that sold a bit. The one in London was interesting because they shipped the paintings to London and asked me, well, how much do you want for this painting? And the gallery covered the cost of shipping them. And then
yeah.
I received the money. And then years later, a guy walked into the gallery that I had and said, oh, I've got one of your pieces. He said, I'd like to sell it because my wife and I have split up and I don't need it anymore. And I
Uh,
said, okay. I said, he described the painting. I knew the title of the painting. And he said, how much can you get for me? And I said, well, I think I'd probably get about $1,700 for it. And I'll just charge you a 10% commission. And he looked at me with a blank look and said, 1,700? I paid way more than that when I bought it. The gallery in London charged the price they thought I should get, but they sent me my 250 bucks or whatever it was that I
uh,
asked.
yeah, yeah.
So I stopped dealing with London. But no, I still do it. I still I have a gallery in Toronto that I use called the Harbor Gallery. I have an agent, and I still keep painting. But I was mostly realism, and then I started doing the bent realism because people really liked it, and I
Oh,
enjoyed doing it more. So I'm still doing it, and I'm trying to get back into oil rather than acrylic.
yeah, yeah. Oh, okay, okay. Well, we have, hold on. We have 5 minutes and 30 seconds. I do have one last question and stuff, but it'll, for both of you, why are editorial cartoons still important?
Humor is important. It's that simple.
Mhm.
Humor is important. Humor is a great safety valve. Humor, we with humor, you're not dropping bombs on people that you don't like. You're not shooting them. You're poking fun at them,
Mhm.
and it has many definitions: satire, uh, wit. All of these things are part of it. But we don't know of any other species that laughs at itself as well as we do, and it goes back to when we first started to laugh was actually a nervous reaction. Apparently, there are many theories, but a nervous reaction to things that made us nervous. It was almost like a warning, like that
Mhm.
evolved into, oh, we're not into actual laughter, and then poking fun at each other. It's always been looking at the picture overall. Humor is a hugely important part of, and even in societies like Russia, for example, where traditionally you're not allowed to do it publicly. The
Yeah.
Russians have a terrific sense of humor when they're poking fun at each other, a
Uh,
wicked sense of humor.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's an essential part. So cartooning is just one small aspect of cartooning, but an important one, a visual one. And they're still very successful in terms of the New Yorker magazine and all kinds of things and many other publications around the world. So humor, visual humor, is hugely important and will always continue. That's my 10 cents worth.
Uh,
Well, I have to agree with everything he said. The only thing I can add to that is that it's that old story where people will say, I can look at one of your cartoons and I get the whole story on it rather than read a big article in the paper about the same thing. It's instantaneous humor. You look at it and within 3 seconds you get it and you're
Yeah.
laughing or
yeah,
you're
yeah.
depending. But I think it's just great way of communicating.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, thank you both and stuff for your talk and for participating with this sick cartoonist and stuff. But yeah, we have 3 minutes left. We just made it under the wire and stuff. So, hey, Andy, I forgot to ask for your fine arts painting. Where can we find it and stuff?
Oh, it's funny. I used to have a website with all the paintings, and I didn't sell one single painting in 5 years.
Okay.
Canceled it because it was costing too much money anyway. you know.
Oh,
But if you look, I think if you just put Andy Donato in artist or painter on Google it, I think some of the paintings do show up there
okay.
as
Okay.
well
I've got a
as well as
suggestion.
cartoons.
I've got a suggestion for Andy. Andy's very, very well known in Toronto. So if you're visiting Toronto, stand at the corner of Yonge Street and Bloor and just yell, "Where's Andy?" And
Great, and
somebody will.
all clear. Good idea.
Oh,
Good.
okay. Well, thank you both and stuff for taking the time. Oh,
And
go
you,
ahead, Andy.
Angelo, go to bed now. Take care of that cold.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I have to go to my dad's and find out how he's doing and stuff. As I said, I'm caregiving right now, so I
Yeah.
have to I always have to do like household chores for him and stuff. So, but
But Angelo, tell me, do you know Danny Aquila?
no, no, no. Is he a Filipino American cartoonist?
Yeah, yes. And
Oh.
he was the guy that ran. We had Ronald Reagan in the Rose Garden
Oh, wait a
making
minute. I
this.
heard this story. Didn't he run up to
He ran
Reagan?
up to, and the guy almost dropped the suitcase off his gun and shot him. It was
Yeah,
unbelievable.
I envy you guys because you've met these cartoonists. I've never met a Filipino American cartoonist. By the time I came along, they were gone.
Yeah, two of my best friends were McNally and Loker, who were
Oh,
great, both great cartoonists. Yeah.
For me, it
oh,
was Pat Oliphant. Pat Oliphant was a great pal.
Yes. Yeah, he was.
Uh, he was just and a great cartoonist, originally Australian. And
yeah.
Australians, even today, have some of the best cartoonists in the world. Anyway, they're just wonderful. The problem is that we don't understand their politics, but they're just tremendous. But Pat was my Duncan McPherson in Canada, but Pat Oliphant was my guy in the United States. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
still
Oh,
around. He retired
Still around. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
2015. He retired.
He set a
Okay.
whole standard, actually. He set a
Okay.
whole standard of cartooning in the States.